Joining us now, member of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, Republican Congressman Adam Kinzinger of Illinois. Congressman Kinzinger is a lieutenant colonel in the Air National Guard, and yesterday he shared his experience from his active duty deployment to the southern border last month in a meeting at the White House with President Trump. Joe?
Hey, Congressman, great to see you.
Hey,
we're going to get to the border in 1 minute, but want to talk about an issue that you and I have been concerned about for some time and been talking about for some time, and that is Syria. It looks like the president has listened to people like you, listened to concerns about leaving Syria to the Russians, the Iranians, and Assad and ISIS. It looks like we're going to keep a presence there. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I think that's a good thing. We have to give the president credit for, I guess, seeing the light on this. And the reality is our presence will do two things. Number one, it'll continue to guard against the resurrection of ISIS, which there will be an ISIS 2 or an Al-Qaeda 3, because the ideology is not dead, just the organization. And so when you look at that, what do we do now? Having 400 troops on the ground will be great for intelligence gathering, to be able to see first signs of a resurrection of ISIS, in essence, or a different group. And it also is a blocking position for Iran. Our base in Al-Tanf straddles a very important highway that Iran wants control of in order to supply its allies against Israel. So this is the right move to do, and I commend the president for making the decision.
Well, it's a lot like our troop presence in South Korea, isn't it? Those troops over there aren't going to stop an invasion from the north, but they are a tripwire. If anything happens to any of those 400 U.S. troops, they can be sure that 4,000 troops will be there in a week.
Or about 1 million. And that's the other thing is, if you look at Eastern Europe, for instance, we have a presence there against Russia. Russia can overwhelm those troops probably pretty quickly, but they know within a week there's going to be the full combat power of the U.S. military behind them. So I think it's the right thing. It also gives the president and America a seat at the table when negotiating an end to the Syrian war, which is inevitably how this has to end.
I like that range, anywhere from 4,000 to 1 million. You choose, Iran, before you make your decision. It may be closer to your 1 million than my 4,000. Let's talk about the border. You've been down there, and I've got a question for you that's sort of perplexing to me, and that is, we've all seen the number of border incursions drop to record lows, at least the lowest in 50 years. But now there's been a spike over the past month or two, and the largest spike in 12 years. What did Barack Obama do that Donald Trump is not doing, and what's caused that massive spike?
I don't know, because, I mean, ultimately you're going to have to ask the people that are making the journey. You know, part of it could be if they believe that this wall is coming and the barrier is coming, they may make the journey now. It's time to get up before that comes up. You know, literally yesterday, on different media conveyances arguing for the wall, but they're arguing saying, well, the border crossings are at a low. Now the border crossings are at a high. The reality is these things are going to cycle, but it's never going to end. It's never going to end until we get control of our border. And I'm all for comprehensive immigration reform. I think if Republicans and Democrats were willing to give each side a win, we could solve this whole problem. Unfortunately, our parties are unwilling to do that, and I think border security is essential because of what I've seen.
Congressman, it's Willie Geist. Good to see you. You talk about what you've seen. You've been down to the border, and we should point out you were deployed to the border with the Air National Guard. You weren't just walking along the border in a windbreaker. You were actually down there serving. What exactly did you see, and did it change your view at all of what's happening down there?
I went down neutral on the idea of a national emergency. I came back supporting it. I'll tell you what I saw. This was my 4th deployment. Here's an important point. To the border. 3 other times we're in Texas under President Obama. So to all these Democratic governors that are pulling the guard from the border, this is not a new mission, and this isn't related to President Trump. The guard is the technology that Democrats claim they want on the border. You know, they don't want a wall, they want technology. That's what the guard does. So what I saw was a number of groups obviously crossing. You would see the coyotes, which are the guides from the cartel, that would sprint away from the group if they ever got spooked and would leave these groups out in the middle of nowhere, 50 miles from any civilization. You would see different people. If you see ones or twos walking along, they'd always drop a bundle, and hopefully the Border Patrol could go pick up the bundle. A lot of the times those were drugs. So drugs and human trafficking, the two main income sources for the cartel, the Zetas, the Sinaloans, and others, is exactly what's happening over the border. And I think I get people may dislike Donald Trump, but I think to deny that there is a problem on the border, I think is doing all of us a little damage.
You know, you don't take the deployment of troops lightly, having served in Iraq and Afghanistan. I know that General Kelly yesterday, the former White House Chief of Staff, was University talking about where he differed from the president on immigration, about policy at the southern border, saying he didn't like the idea of putting troops down there. What do you make of that?
Well, I mean, it's his opinion. I think there's a difference here between troops being the National Guard and troops being an active duty deployment. My guess is I didn't see his thing. He's talking about the active duty. Here's what I understand from what active duty is doing. They had a flu outbreak, I guess, in one of the detention facilities. Active duty helped to treat the patients with the flu. You know, that's something that still frees border agents to do what they need to do. Things like hardening the ports of entry, which my friends on the other side of the aisle say is the issue, is the ports of entry. Active duty's down there hardening those ports of entry. So I think you can have an opinion against it. That's fine. I don't mind people with different opinions, but I think we need all the facts, and we need to analyze this through the context of what's happening and what's really being done. Like I said, I want to fix immigration once and for all. I get called a moderate in my party sometimes because of the things I want to do, but border security is essential to that.
Congressman Elise Jordan here. Based on your mission, you cited the levels of human trafficking and the amount of drugs coming into the country. What is the increase? What has been the increase over the past year in the levels of human trafficking?
Well, you'll have to ask the statistical folks for that. Border Patrol has those numbers. All I know is what I saw. So I fly an airplane. I'm a lieutenant colonel. We are part of the overall operations in Arizona. And I saw this happen. Now, if I was there a year ago in the same capacity, would I have seen more or less? I don't know. But I know it's happening. And I know that when you live in El Salvador or Honduras, and the cartel comes to you and says, give us $6,000, all your life savings, and we'll get you into the United States safely. You cross the border, they desert you. There is nowhere to go, and you could end up one of the 200 bodies that are found every year in the Arizona desert. That is not compassionate. Compassion is saying, come to the United States the generous, the legal, and the safe way. That's what we believe. That's what we want to ultimately as a country.
So just to follow up on that, should victims of human trafficking face deportation and arrest if they report what has happened to them?
Well, so that's kind of a question that you're going to try to put me in a box to here's what I think. If you come to the United States illegally and you are arrested, you should be deported, period. Now, when you talk about like a victim of human trafficking can be anything. It can be somebody that pays a human trafficker to bring them into the United States. That's almost everybody, besides the people that go and declare asylum at the ports. This idea that, you know, the United States needs to just, anybody that comes here, allow them into the United States. Maybe I'm old school, but I still believe there is a legal process to do that, and that should be enforced.
So instead of dealing with the root cause of human trafficking and human smuggling, no, that's not. Isn't that what you just said?
No, what I'm saying is, if somebody, I think we need to deal with, if we want to have a 10-minute discussion about this, I'll give you all the ideas I have. Part of that is fixing the problem in Central and South America and in Mexico. Part of that is going after the sources there. Part of that is getting the message out to folks in El Salvador that if you pay $6,000 to come to the United States, it's not a safe journey. That's not the U.S.'s fault. That's the cartel's fault. And so I think all of this, both information, enforcement, and everything, is going to be key to this whole aspect.
Congressman Adam Kinzinger, thank you very much for being on this morning.